Hi, my name is Samantha. I'm a registered dietitian and welcome to my channel. So today we will be discussing something that I'm very passionate about, which is the Mediterranean diet, and we'll be talking about Ancel Keys and the 7-country study. So let's get started. Ancel Keys was an American scientist who went on to conduct the 7-country study, and he was the first one to notice a link between diet and coronary heart disease. Ancel Keys was born to teenagers in 1904, and he grew up in Berkeley, California, where his family struggled. In 1922, he started at the University of California at Berkeley, and he completed his undergraduate degree in just 2 years. He returned to UC Berkeley and earned his first PhD in biology in 1930. After a 2-year fellowship in Copenhagen working under August Crow, he went on to study at the University of Cambridge, earning his second PhD in biology in 1936. From here, Keys pioneered work on the oxygen-carrying capacity of the blood. In 1939, he was recruited to the University of Minnesota, where he would stay until his retirement in 1975. His next major study was the controversial but groundbreaking Minnesota starvation experiment, which studied the best way to safely and gradually refeed starving refugees. In the 1950s, he began the landmark 7-country study, which we will detail today. So the 7-country study was started by Ancel Keys in 1958, and the first phase of the study lasted until 1983. Keys had noticed that the poor populations in small towns of southern Italy were much healthier than the wealthier citizens of New York. Keys suggested that this depended on food, and so started the 7-country study. So Keys hypothesized that diet and lifestyle influenced the development of heart disease, which challenged the common medical wisdom at the time that atherosclerosis was a natural consequence of aging. The study measured dietary habits, biomarkers, and lifestyles of over 12,000 men in 7 countries: the US, Italy, Finland, Greece, the Netherlands, Japan, and Yugoslavia. The 7-country study was a prospective cohort study, which means that the researchers enrolled participants who did not have coronary heart disease at baseline, and they continued to track and collect data on these participants over time. The researchers then assessed incidence of and mortality from coronary heart disease and tracked whether baseline measurements were associated with differing propensities for disease development and mortality. The study was observational, meaning the researchers did not introduce dietary or lifestyle interventions. So what were the findings of the 7-country study? Well, the study found 3 significant correlations. Number 1, that saturated fat intake is correlated to serum cholesterol levels. The cohorts with the highest intake of calories from saturated fat had also high serum cholesterol levels, and cohorts with low intake of calories from saturated fat had also low serum cholesterol levels. Number 2, that saturated fat intake is correlated to incidence of coronary heart disease, and number 3, that serum cholesterol levels are correlated to incidence of coronary heart disease. The study at the time did not prove a causation among these factors, but through subsequent studies and findings, we can now state with confidence that a causation does in fact exist. Or in other words, that saturated fat intake can raise cholesterol levels, which can lead to coronary heart disease. So what is the Mediterranean diet? Well, we can first go to Ancel Keys himself, who described the diet in this way: homemade minestrone, pasta of all varieties, with tomato sauce and a sprinkling of Parmesan, only occasionally enriched with a few pieces of meat or served with a small fish of the place, beans, and macaroni. So much bread, never removed from the oven more than a few hours before being eaten. Lots of fresh vegetables sprinkled with olive oil, a small portion of meat or fish, maybe a couple times a week, and always fresh fruit for dessert. The Mediterranean diet is not a diet per se, but it's more so a lifestyle and dietary pattern. It's a term that's used to describe the way of eating that reflects the countries that surround the Mediterranean Sea, such as those studied by Ancel Keys. In general, these populations tend to eat largely whole food plant-based, with plenty of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, extra virgin olive oil, with moderate amounts of fish and seafood, dairy products, eggs, and poultry, and very little red meat and sweets. During his studies, Ancel Keys had become so convinced of the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet that he chose to adopt it. He moved to Poppi, a small town in Italy, and ate like the natives until his death in 2004 at the age of 100. On his 100th birthday, He was asked whether his diet has contributed to his long life, and he answered, very likely, but no proof. So he was a very rigorous scientist. So what are our takeaways for today from Ancel Keys and the 7-country study? Well, Keys' practical recommendations on diet remain very much valid today. In fact, U.S. News and World Report recently ranked the Mediterranean diet as the #1 best diet overall. It was also #1 best plant-based diet, best heart-healthy diet, best diet for healthy eating, and easiest diet to follow. And it also ranked #1, tied for first, as best diabetes diet. Since the 7-country study, the Mediterranean diet continues to be studied, and Keys' original findings continue to be validated and also enriched. Aside from all its heart-healthy findings, we now know that the Mediterranean diet is linked to longevity, lower risk for cancer death, lower rates of cognitive decline, it's protective against type 2 diabetes, and it also supports a healthy gut microbiota. What's so great about the Mediterranean diet is that it's practical, it's simple, imaginative, and creative, and it's delicious. And in my professional opinion, most, if not all people, could benefit from moving towards this way of eating. It's not a diet in the restrictive sense, as nothing is completely off limits. And I think Michael Pollan, who's the author of The Omnivore's Dilemma, said it best when he said, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." Thank you so much for watching my very first video. Please hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share, and I hope to see you in my next video.